Hey, Debbie, this is my interview with John Brubaker to air sometime this summer. And we are actually doing this on video. Hello, everybody. So this is kind of cool. We're going to do a video radio interview. So that doesn't mean, John, that you can nod, by the way.
Okay.
All right. So I actually interviewed one guy who kept nodding. And I'm like, you do understand how radio works, right? All right. Ready to go? Here we go. Good morning and welcome to the Derek Volk Show. I'm your host, Derek Volk. I hope everybody is enjoying their Saturday morning. My guest this morning is John Brubaker. And for those of you listening, you may not realize this, but we're actually also videoing this interview. So I'm sitting in my office. John Brubaker is sitting in his house, I think, right? And his office in his house. And we are actually video recording this interview, and it will air on John's special group Facebook page called Yesterday's Underdogs, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So John has been on my show several times if you've listened to the show before, and I actually met John through my fabulous producer, Debbie Davis, who I was talking to at the beginning of the interview here, because this show is not done live. If anybody's listening to this right now on the radio, I do not do this show live. I don't come in on Saturday mornings. I'm probably at the lake or at a softball tournament if it's in the summertime. And I pre-record all the shows, and I send them to Debbie, and she makes everybody sound brilliant on Saturday morning. And so
she can even make me sound brilliant.
Yeah, that's impressive. And so I met John through Debbie. She's like, you should interview this guy, John Brubaker, for your show. So I did. And I think that was about the first book that it wasn't about seeds of success, was it?
No, it was my first book, The Coach Approach.
That's right. I interviewed you about the coach approach, and then I interviewed about Seeds of Success, and then I interviewed you about Stadium Status. So you've been on the show at least 3 times that I can remember, maybe more. So
I basically, folks, I just write books to get booked on Derek's radio show.
That's right. That's what it's all about, really, in the grand scheme of things. So, John, welcome to the show. Tell everybody, for those listening and don't see us doing this, what is Yesterday's Underdog, and where is this video going to play? I got to stop putting my hand up. I got to stop talking with my hands because I'm blocking the video.
Yeah, so Yesterday's Underdog is a membership site I started. It's kind of like a subscription site, just like you subscribe to Netflix or Spotify. It is a membership community where you can access my premium content beyond just reading my newsletter and my blog. You can access my premium content, which is a premium podcast, articles, video. And we also, foster that sense of community and sort of the strength in numbers concept. We do a monthly video chat, and the members have an opportunity to network with one another and, create business, everything from creating joint ventures, business deals, getting feedback on projects, all that is taking place in my membership community, which is at yesterdaysunderdog.com.
And John, say that again because we got frozen up for a second there.
So, and I was just saying, all the content is hosted on my membership site, which is called yesterdaysunderdog.com, and it's sort of, the concept is born of the fact that we're all underdogs in some way, shape, or form, unless you're Google or Nike of your industry. We all have to find a creative way to compete. And, as we kind of dive deeper into the interview here, we can talk sort of the numbers behind the concept, but I think there's a common misconception that people believe, they need this massive sort of huge critical mass of numbers or following or fans or audience to be successful, and that's just not the case. So that's sort of it's really the purpose of the community.
Why did you do it? Why did you were doing just a general blog and general podcast, and everybody could get it for free? So why did you decide to start this group?
Sure, great question. Decided to start it for 2 reasons. People wanted more and more of my content, like a deeper dive into what I was writing about, or my podcast, and simply there's just not enough hours in the day. Number one. Number 2 is there's a small number of people, and when I say small number of people, I mean my email list, my readership's in the thousands, but in terms of people responding who wanted more, that was a much smaller number. But what I was finding was, as you look at, email subscription rates and kind of like Facebook throttling down, the number of views your videos get and things like that, is really, if people aren't paying, they aren't paying attention. And I think there's a lot to be said for having a skin in the game. You look at people who are just given a copy of a book. 85% of people who receive a book never read it. And they're much more apt if they purchase the book versus being given to them to read it. But the sad part is 75% of people who buy a book only read the first chapter. So really what I'm doing is I'm focusing on my kind of super fans, or the people who are fanatical about my message and really want to take a deeper dive into things. And I don't say that to impress anybody. I say that to impress upon everybody. That I think that's what we all need to do in our business, is focus on the people who really are passionate about what you have to offer and are incredibly engaged. Whether those are employees or customers, both. You should focus on the fanatics.
Yeah, I totally agree about having some skin in the game. When we built this new building that I'm in right now, we put in a fitness center, and the original plan was it was gonna be free for all the employees. And one of my customers had a fitness center, so I said, can I come visit your fitness center and kind of see how you do it and how you run it? And I went up there, and they said one of the most important things is charge people. Even if you charge them something, charge them $2 a month. If they see something coming out of their paycheck, $2 a week, or I think it was $2 a week. Charge them $2 a week. Nobody's going to miss $2, and if they're not going to pay the $2, they're not going to use the gym anyway. Mm-hmm. And at least they have some skin in the game, and if they see it come out of their paycheck every week, they're going to remember, maybe I should go to the gym. So, John, you've talked about deeper dive into your content. You said the word "my content" 3 or 4 times. What is John Brubaker's content? What do they get? What are people getting?
Sure. So I'm a speaker, author, and executive coach. And my content, I just said it 5 times, Derek. My content is, in this community, that's 6, if you're keeping score at home, is an article a week, a podcast that supplements the article, and then something I call a 2-minute drill, which is a 2-minute video that allows you to kind of take the theory and put it into practice, how you can apply it and put it into action. Because knowledge, I like to say K minus A equals 0. Knowledge minus action equals nothing. So it's a way for you to really kind of be hands-on and start to apply the wisdom, as opposed to just reading a bunch of theory. I think that's why most business books really kind of suck, is because there's a lot of pie in the sky theory or fluff, and or it's just really a lot of boring business mumbo jumbo, as opposed to stuff that, like, after you read it or after you listen to it, you can actually go apply it literally like 5 minutes later. And that was my goal, is to have really things you could really be hands-on with and use.
Let's back up for the listener who didn't hear any of the other times you've been on my show. Give us a little background on how you got to the point where you're doing this kind of content, and that doesn't count against you. That was my word.
Sure. So to backtrack really kind of the beginning, this is a second career for me. I spent 12 years as a college lacrosse coach, and I was fired we're coming up on the anniversary of my firing, which is my birthday. I was fired on June 14th, 2004. Athletic director walked in my office and knocked on the door. He walked in. I said, "Come on in, have a seat." He's like, "No, it's okay. That won't take that long, John." Just had a meeting with the president of the university, and we decided it was just one thing keeping us from winning a national championship in men's lacrosse. I'm like, "That's great, Carl. What's that?" And here I am thinking, like, first of all, we were understaffed. I thought maybe he was going to get me a full-time assistant. And then secondly, we were underfunded in terms of scholarships. We're nowhere near the scholarship limit. So I thought we'd go from like 3.6 scholarships to 10.8 and be on a level playing field with everybody. Just come off of NCAA Final Four appearance. I was a year removed from being coach of the year, We had academic All-Americans, All-Americans. I mean, that guy could have tiled his office with all conference plaques from my players. And he just looks at me and he's like, that one thing, John, is you. And he passes an envelope across the desk to me. It was my buyout, which at a small private Division II school, I assure you that wasn't a very big number. And at the time, I had a wife, a mortgage, and a baby. So I was just out, done. And when you're a fired coach, you're kind of radioactive typically for about a year or so. And I had to figure out what I was going to do next. I went into broadcasting and sponsorship sales at ESPN Radio. Hosted an evening drive show for them for 2 years. And that's sort of when, I had an opportunity to really get invited out. When you do something like that in your community, you have an opportunity to get invited to go speak at like the Rotary or, Chamber of Commerce meetings, business after hours. I started doing that. And one of our advertisers just, who had invited me to do it, just said, do you ever think of doing this for a living? He said, I'm not trying to convince you to quit your job with the station, but you can monetize this. And I hadn't really given it much thought before, but at the time, the radio station was then shortly thereafter being sold and flipped to Spanish language programming. Coach Brew does not habla. So that's really kind of the time that I became an entrepreneur. I need a job where I can control my own destiny. And I don't want to be at the mercy of somebody else's wishes, whims, or decisions. And that's when this began.
Had knowledge. Yeah, so you had the knowledge. You just had to decide to act. I love that.
Exactly.
K A equals 0, right? K, and it reminds you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of there's a Rush song called "Half the World." Have you ever heard that song?
Absolutely.
And one of the lines is half the world thinks and half the world does.
Yep.
And that's true. There's a lot of people that think a lot of great things but don't do anything. And really, the world changes by people who do stuff.
Absolutely. And, that was kind of the impetus for it. And my whole message for people who are hearing me for the first time on here, my whole message is really sort of the intersection between sport and business. The name of my company is actually called The Sport of Business, LLC, because I think that, the leadership skills, team building, performance enhancement strategies that take place on the playing field and in the locker room are incredibly transferable to the boardroom. So it's actually a subtle, shameless plug for the subtitle of my first book, The Coach Approach, Success Strategies from the Locker Room to the Boardroom. I think we have a great collision taking place right now in society between sports and business. The best executives want to learn from the Nick Sabans and the Bill Belichicks and successful championship level coaches, and coaches who are really performing at a high level know they have to get their best ideas from outside their industry. It's that competitive in every industry. So they're seeking out, great business minds, whether that's, borrowing concepts from like Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, just here's a great example. I just read in the Boston Globe, Bill Belichick just hired a martial arts expert to work with his defensive line on pass rush technique.
Huh.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd probably be good if there's a fumble too, because they can karate chop somebody and get the ball.
Absolutely. I just think it's an example outside the box thinking, and there's a reason why top performers are at the level they're at. They're receptive to voices from outside their industry to get a competitive edge. So it's really what I'm all about.
Well, it's interesting that you say that about going outside your industry, and I just finished actually interviewing somebody else who's yesterday's underdog, and I'm talking to John Brubaker, and what we're talking about today is his new exclusive group called Yesterday's Underdog, and you can get all the information about it on my website, DerekVolkshow.com. We're also doing this on video, which John is going to air on somewhere, I don't know where, and
everywhere. We're global. We're global, Derek. Come on.
It's going to be everywhere. And so I've interviewed a couple of the other Yesterday's Underdogs, and part of the reason I love doing this radio show is because I learn every time I talk to somebody, I learn a lot. And if I were to run into some of these people at a cocktail party or a dinner event or something, I might have a little casual conversation with them, but I'm never going to deep dive into what they do for a living and why they do it and how they do it. And so I've learned so much. I mean, I had Ann Z on one of your on yesterday's under
Yep.
talking
Anza
about
Prasny.
yeah, Ann Zaprasny talking about coaching and talking about the mental game, which is really something that I've always worked with my girls on whenever I've coached softball. And I think it's part of, we talked a lot about Lily actually on that interview, on the air and off the air. And I ended up talking to her for like an hour and a half because we ended up talking about a lot of stuff off the air. And I just did an interview right before this one with Ross Lasley and talked to him about computer stuff, but then we got on a whole discussion about disabilities because he has a disability, and we talked about his disability and Dylan's disability and how different but yet the same they are. Yeah. And you just learn so much. And last week when you had your Sunday night discussion group, I was in the car. I was on my way back from somewhere. Where was I? On the way
come back from Albany, weren't you? Wasn't UMaine playing University of Albany?
Yeah, no, we had already. Yeah, I think you're right. Maybe I was coming back from Albany. I don't know. I lose track where I'm going. But I was coming back from somewhere. I think it was Albany. And no, it was Binghamton. It was Binghamton for the playoffs. And so I'm doing the interview and I'm doing the phone call with you guys. And when we got done, my wife said something about what was that all about? And she was driving. And I said, it's this new group that Brew has, and this is what he's doing. And I explained it to her. And, she said, well, what do those people have to do with your business? I said, nothing. And that's the beauty of it. Yeah. They're all doing something very different. And all it takes is for me to learn one thing each week from these people, or each time we talk, or I go on the Facebook page and there's a private Facebook page for yesterday's Underdogs. And every time I'm going to learn something. And so let's take a break. When we come back, let's get a little deeper into what someone would get with yesterday's Underdogs. So we're going to leave the video rolling, but we're going to take a quick break, and we will come back in a minute with more of the Derek Volk Show after these commercials here on Newstalk WLOB. All right, now we're coming back, Debbie. So we are back from commercial. So for those of you who are watching this, I'm recording this, and then later Debbie Davis, who's my awesome, fabulous producer, is going to edit it all out. So when it airs on the radio or my podcast, you won't hear all this talking that you're actually seeing right now on John's video. All right, so ready to come back, John?
Whenever you are.
All right, here we go. Okay. Welcome back to the Derek Volk Show. I'm your host, Derek Volk. I have been talking to John Brubaker. He is the author of several books: The Coach Approach, Seeds of Success, Stadium Status for starters, and that's a lot of S's. And you can get all the information. Oh, look at that. Shameless plug right there. So for those of you who are not listening but watching, he is holding up a copy of his book, Stadium Status. It was awesome. And especially, I think it's on page 67. There's a really good story in there about somebody that I know pretty well. And so I have John on the show. He's been on the show several times talking about his different books. Did I get that page right? I'll be interested if I pulled that off. And so John is now doing a thing called Yesterday's Underdogs. So he's been on the show multiple times talking about his different books. Now he has an exclusive group called Yesterday's Underdogs, and it's more of his content and more information about what you can do to be a better leader, to be a better worker, to be a better friend, to be a better person in general. It's all kind of encompassed in this Yesterday's Underdogs, and that's part of why I enjoy it, because it's not just focused on one thing. So, John, did I get that page right, or was I wrong?
It's page 116, Derek.
116. Well, I knew it had a 6 in it. So
it did. Yeah, and it's it's all about the Volk Packaging Thank You Tour, which I strongly suggest everyone pick up a copy of the book. Immediately rush to page 116 before reading anything else, and
absolutely
then do a thank you tour of your own.
So unlike those people that you mentioned last time, that 85% of people only read the first chapter, we're saying read page 116, and then if you want to read the rest of the book, then it's up to you. But definitely read page 116. John, we talked last time a little bit about what people get with yesterday's underdog and why you did it. And all the information about this is on my website, DerekVolkShow.com. If you go to DerekVolkShow.com, you can get all the information about yesterday's underdogs. We'll put a link onto John's books as well. And it'll all be on my Facebook page. And if you want to listen, if you missed the beginning of the interview, you can hear the whole thing on my podcast, which comes out on iTunes and Stitcher on Mondays. So give us an example of what kind of content, what's either maybe one of your 2-minute drills or something that you've put out there on yesterday's underdogs. Give my audience a little yesterday's underdogs teaser.
Sure. And I think this is the value of a community. It's actually the value of a small community, which is a little bit of a, kind of a contrarian point of view, if you will. And the example I'll give is I think we're all either a great example or a cautionary tale. So I use myself as a little bit of a cautionary tale here. When I started my business in 2008 and was committed to being, a full-time speaker, author, coach, I followed a lot of air quotes, expert advice. People who told me there was a certain formula you needed to employ. You wanted to speak as many places as you can, whether it was for free or paid gigs, contribute a ton of content everywhere, host a radio show, do all these things, try and build up a massive social media presence in the hopes of being discovered. So discovered for me, and I think we're all in this conversation in different ways. Discovered for me was, a literary agent, a film agent, speakers bureaus, things like that, a publisher. And what I found was like being discovered is, and like cranking out all this stuff in the hopes of being discovered is kind of like buying more Powerball tickets in the hopes of winning the lottery. You're really not increasing your odds. And what I found was it was unsustainable, and I was doing what everyone else was doing, which is really a recipe for mediocrity. And it's simply unsustainable and it was out of my control. What did I have control over? I had control over, creating thought-provoking, engaging commentary and helping people. And, I decided I needed to shift my focus to where, I wasn't, quote, gambling. And I wanted to be able to control my platform because it's, just putting all that stuff out there and hoping is incredibly disempowering. And there's no control behind that. I was contributing to Entrepreneur Magazine every single week. I hosted a radio show in a top 10 market in Boston. And what did all of that do? It didn't get me discovered by anybody. I got 2 publishing deals, and 2 of my books that were traditionally published had a bunch of errors and mistakes and didn't sell as well as my self-published book, my first book. So why was I playing this game and trying to compare myself to other people when that game wasn't working for them either? So I started looking at different industries, Derek, and there are independent musicians without record deals who are making millions and millions of dollars and touring the nation, who have no radio airplay, no record deal, and they're incredibly successful because all they're doing is providing value for their tribe, paid audience members. And I kind of took that model, and I thought really in some ways less is more, but I didn't exactly know why until I discovered this concept called Dunbar's number. And this is something we talk about in my community, Yesterday's Underdogs. So Robin Dunbar is a psychologist at Oxford University. And in his research he was doing, he found that the size of the average human's neocortex, and that's kind of like the part of the brain that handles social relationships. So the neocortex, the average of the kind of the average person was able to handle roughly 150, successfully handle roughly 150 members of their social group. Anything beyond that would be too complicated to handle at really an optimal level. So he thought that was interesting and decided to kind of expand this research beyond simply people's friendships and social groups. So he looked at, for example, the number of Christmas cards sent by the average household in the UK. It was right around 150. He looked at back in the Stone Age, the number of people that were in human settlements was always right around 150. And companies and armies dating back from the Roman Empire to today, that magic number, Dunbar's number, is about 150 people. And like, think about it. You look at the subdivisions that people live in, like right here in Maine. It's roughly 150 or smaller in terms of homes and communities. So there's it's kind of a universal truth is my point, but it goes beyond this number of 150 and actually factors down divisible by 3. So like 150 people would be like kind of the number we call casual friends that we have, social relationships, divided by 3. 50 is roughly the number of people we have who are pretty close friends. Like the example I like to give is, the amount of people you invite to a large cocktail party. And then you factor that down roughly by 3 is what I call your circle of 15. And that's like your group of friends that you really confide in, you would go to when things go wrong. And the interesting thing is like 3/4 of your time is spent, from that circle of 15 down. And the final number for everyone listening is 5. And that's kind of your closest support group, typically your family, your best friend, spouse. Half your time's invested with that closest group. So, there's some real validity in all these numbers. The favorite example I like to give is people have probably heard of the Gore Company. They make waterproof Gore-Tex jackets and pants and material, Gore-Tex material. Well, William Gore, when he built the company up in his manufacturing facility, when it got to 150 employees, he decided, instead of expanding, I'm going to build another building on the property adjacent to us, because he just felt like 150, and he wasn't thinking of Dunbar's number.
I was going to ask,
initially.
Did you know anything about Dunbar?
No, he just felt like the company is getting to a size where social relationships are getting harder to navigate. Communication might be getting compromised. So he expanded. Instead of expanding, he built adjacent on the property. And then when that building built up to 150, then he expanded to another property. He just found that they worked better as a team in groups of 150 or less. And, as I'm looking at that, I'm thinking, like, is anybody else's business really any different than that? And so today I think there are a lot of people who, kind of try and debunk this and are skeptical because of the advent of social media. And we've been told, you can build your business with social media and you can grow this huge platform. But so think about it this way: as you look at, the number of Facebook friends or fans your business has, Twitter followers, LinkedIn connections, whatever it is, look at depth versus width. Sure, we can have a lot. Like, we can have thousands. I have thousands of Twitter followers. How many of them do I really, really respond to, like, retweet, and engage with? Not all 7,000 to 8,000. It's 150, 200 maybe at any given time, any given day. So, I dug a little deeper to look at this, and I think there's a message for all of us that less is really more, and it's about depth of relationships, and it's about engagement versus being a mile wide and an inch deep and just, kind of shouting from the mountaintops, hoping people hear you. This guy, Bruno Gonzalez, is a researcher at Indiana University. He found that regardless of the size of someone's Twitter following, they're only able to manage between 100 and 200 stable connections. So less is really more in terms of building quality relationships, answering questions, engaging with your customer base. In Michigan State, and apparently, like, this is a big research topic in the Big Ten conference, because at Michigan State, there's a woman named Nicole Ellison, and she surveyed random college undergraduates. These are like the digital natives whose social media is all they've ever known. And they found while their average number of Facebook, air quotes, Facebook friends was 300 plus, they only really counted an average of about 75 of them as real friends. It's that depth.
And probably a lot of them are Right, and probably a lot of those are not actually real friends.
No.
And I think that's a generational thing that is going to be very challenging for the next generation, because they do have all these followers on Instagram and Facebook, and not Facebook so much anymore, but Instagram and Snapchat and whatever it comes down the line next.
Sure.
And they're all, and in a lot of ways they're very superficial relationships, but they don't realize that until later, when they need somebody to help them move or drive them to the airport, and all of a sudden they realize that they don't have that many real friends.
Yeah. And so you look at like the amount of kind of social capital that we really have in terms of like the bandwidth on a day-to-day basis to really engage with people. And that's the value of less is more. So like that was my motivation for really starting my membership site, is to be able to serve a smaller number of really, really deeply engaged people better. I don't need thousands of people in my community. I need to serve a smaller number well. So if you're listening to this and you're a business owner, think about this. Like, and maybe the gears are turning in your head right now, Derek. Think about like a sales rep, or maybe if you're a solopreneur, like how many prospects do you have? How many customers do you have? How many like really kind of repeat long-term customers do you have? And then how many, quote, key accounts? It's probably a little bigger than 150 is your prospects. You'd probably be able to manage 150, 200 customers. You have strong, repeat, really high-value customers, probably around in the 50s. And then your key accounts are that smaller number, 15, 5 maybe in some cases. So I think you can extrapolate that Dunbar number to a lot of different things if you really look at it, and just kind of how are you really engaging and showing appreciation to those key people.
It's interesting that you say that, because I hadn't even really thought about it, and I read what you had done with the about Dunbar a couple of weeks ago. That was a couple of weeks ago, I think, when you posted that.
Yep.
To the Yesterday's Underdogs groups. And I'm talking to John Brubaker. We're talking about his organization called Yesterday's Underdogs. Anybody can join. You can get all the information on my website, derekvolkshow.com. So far, the people that I have met in this organization have been amazing. I've been extremely impressed with the people that because I put an offer out there for any of Yesterday's Underdogs to come on my radio show. And I think I've done 3 now, and all of them have been extremely impressive. And I think I did an hour with at least 2 of them. I did a full hour, I know. And so any of you Yesterday's Underdogs, if you're listening or watching this and you haven't contacted me yet, let me know. Reach out to me. I'm right on you can get me right through Bru's site. You can go right to derekvolkshow.com. You can contact me that way. Believe me.
Yeah.
You Google Derek Volk, you'll find me. I'm not that hard to find. And you're all welcome to come on the show. I'm always looking for content. That was my word, John. And but you better call me soon, because I am taking the summer off. So this is going to be what I do is I do a lot of shows. I record a lot of shows in the spring. And that way I can take the whole summer off, and I can kind of give Debbie the summer off from doing my show, which is really great, because I like to be at softball tournaments and up to camp. And so when you were talking about that, John, what I was thinking was about my sales rep. So I have my sales reps handle different amount of accounts. And as you're talking, I hadn't really thought about it at the level of sales reps yet. When I read it in the Yesterday's Underdogs, I was thinking more of relationships.
Sure.
And the 15 and the 5. I mean, that's pretty true. Certainly, people that you can really count on. Like I said, how many people are going to help you move? That's not a big number. And so what occurred to me is about, I think 3 years ago now, I had a sales rep who walked into he's been with us for almost 40 years, and is retiring soon. And he sat down in my office and he said, look, I just want you to know, and I'm going to refine the word a little because we're on radio. He said, I just want you to know, I'm doing a crappy job servicing my accounts. And if you want me to continue to do a crappy job servicing my accounts, then just keep everything going the same way.
Wow.
But if you don't want me to continue doing a crappy job, you need to do something, because I cannot physically get to all these customers, because his territory is all of southern Maine. And so every mom and pop, every local guy who starts, comes up with some crazy invention in their basement, calls us up and they need boxes. They call International Paper, and what do you think International Paper says? Call Volk Packaging. So for those of you listening for the first time, I own a corrugated box company located in Biddeford, Maine, and we're family owned, locally owned corrugated box plant. We're the only independently owned box plant in the state of Maine. And so International Paper doesn't want some guy in Hollis making wicker chairs in his garage. They have no interest in doing business with that company. If it's even a company, it may just be a guy, and he doesn't even have a company established, and that happens a lot. And so when Greg came in and said that he was doing a terrible job servicing his accounts, he had about 300 accounts, and he couldn't do it. And so what I did is I hired a junior sales rep, and we took all his accounts under a certain dollar level, and we gave them to the junior guy, which was then the training for when he retires or when somebody else retires. And it gave Greg a chance to not do a crappy job, which he admitted that he was doing, because he needed to be down closer to that 150 number.
Absolutely. And it gives him that, the depth as opposed to width. Think about like some of the sales opportunities and business development with existing accounts that you can do when you have the time to invest in the relationships, and you can actually, physically get to and connect with in person those people.
That's exactly what he said. He said, I am at sometimes my best customer, and all I'm thinking about is trying to wrap up the conversation so that I can get to the guy in Hollis making wicker chairs in his garage. And I don't think that's what you want me to do. I don't think that's what you're paying me. You're paying me to say to be, when I'm at that best customer, to give them my undivided attention and to say, you want to go grab lunch? Well, I don't have time to go grab lunch. I got to drive to Hollis. So nothing against anybody in Hollis, and I don't think I actually have a guy making wicker chairs in Hollis, for the record. I came up with that off the top of my head. But it's, making candles in this town. I mean, people do all kinds. You'd be amazed, listener, how many people have a full-time job, and then make something in their basement, garage, or kitchen. They make whoopie pies. They make brownies. They make everything under the sun. Meth. Yeah,
no, that's in their bathtub. Never mind.
Yeah. We won't go there. People.
Derek. I'm Googling right now wicker chairs in Hollis, Maine, and I'll report back in 1 second what I find.
That will be very interesting. I hope he buys boxes from us if he does. So I'm talking to John Brubaker. The organization, a group is called Yesterday's Underdogs, is what we're talking about. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and wrap this interview up, because we're running low on time, and we need to pay the bills. So we're going to take a break. We're going to come back in a minute with more of the Derek Volk Show here on News Talk WLOB, 1310 AM, 100.5 FM, and streaming on my website, derekvolkshow.com. We'll be right back. And now, for you who are watching, we're not actually taking a break, because this is all just being recorded. Debbie is listening to this whole thing, and she's just going to cut all this part out. And so is there anybody? Yeah, there you go. He's doing a little thing. Is there anybody in Hollis making wicker chairs?
Well, since we're on a break, I can tell you there's no one in Hollis, Maine.
Oh, damn.
Making wicker chairs, which is unfortunate. There is there's mainwicker.com in Searsport, which is nowhere near Hollis, but Maine Wicker.
All right. Okay.
There isn't even, this is the depth to which I want to research this for your show, Derek. I can't even find wicker chairs for sale on Craigslist in Hollis, Maine.
Really? Wow.
Amazing.
All right. Well, so there's an opportunity. All right.
For somebody in their basement, yes.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to come back now from break. And let me see. We're at 39. So we got like 7 or 8 minutes to go. All right. Here we go. Welcome back to the Derek Volk Show. I'm your host, Derek Volk. I have been talking this morning with John Brubaker. He is the author of several books, including The Coach Approach and Seeds of Success, both terrific books, as well as his newest book, Stadium Status, Taking Your Business to the Big Time. And it's a terrific book. I recommend it highly, especially page 116. That is a very interesting page. And where John talks about Volk packaging, I was very honored to be named in his book. So,
Derek, I hear if all you do is read page 116, it's still well worth your $15.
Absolutely, that's really that. It is. I think it would be actually, because I think what you wrote about on page 116 is good stuff. So we before we went to break, I had made we were telling a story about my sales rep and how he had too many accounts. And I mentioned that he was going to drive out to Hollis to sell to a guy making wicker chairs in his garage. And during the commercial break, John Brubaker was all the information about John and yesterday's Underdogs and his books is all on my website, DerekVolkShow.com. So if you go to DerekVolkShow.com, you can get all that information. If you missed the beginning of the show, you can hear all the interview. You can also hear it on my podcast on iTunes or Stitcher. And you can subscribe, hear all my shows, delete the ones that you think are boring, and listen to the ones you want. That's the beauty of podcasts. So, John, while we're on break, you were kind enough to actually Google wicker chairs Hollis. And the audience is waiting with bated breath to find out how they can buy Hollis chairs. Excuse me, let me say that again, Debbie. The audience is waiting with bated breath to find out how they can buy wicker chairs at Hollis. So give us the news. I need a timpani, like, drum roll or something.
So I don't know I don't even know what bated breath looks like or sounds like, but wait no more, because you cannot, in fact, buy wicker chairs in Hollis, Maine. There is a Maine wicker company. It's actually in Searsport, Maine, which is nowhere near Hollis. But I even looked on Craigslist. Like, there is nothing you can't find on Craigslist. I mean, literally nothing. And there are no wicker chairs. There are no wicker chairs in Hollis, Maine. Not even for sale on Craigslist. But go ahead, Derek.
Let's not look at that as disappointing. Let's look at that as, if you live in Hollis and you're looking for a great business opportunity, if you start making wicker chairs in your garage, as I suggested, you will have a monopoly, probably not just on Hollis, but on the greater Hollis community. There may not be anybody in Buxton or Waterboro making Hollis chairs out of their garage, making wicker chairs out of their garage either. So this is a tremendous opportunity.
And they will need cardboard boxes.
Exactly.
So it's a tremendous opportunity for Volk packaging. Funny story, Derek, you talk about like finding things, Craigslist, Google, whatever. I won't mention the radio station because it's a competitor of yours. But Sunday on my way to church, I was listening to that telephone flea market show where people call in to sell stuff. So a guy called in to sell his John Deere tractor. And he described it as quieter, in better shape, and with less mileage on it than his ex-wife.
Oh, that's harsh.
Yeah. So when I said you can find anything, online, that also includes apparently telephone flea market shows. I got a kick out of his creativity, though.
Yeah, that was good. That was good to come up with that. So, John, before we run out of time, we've been talking about yesterday's Underdogs. Give us, and I think it's hard for people who haven't participated in yesterday's Underdogs to understand, why would I do that? What am I getting out of that? And what kind of commitment is it? So
sure.
What am I giving in? Basically the question is, what do I have to give into yesterday's Underdogs, and what am I getting out of it?
Yeah, the whole concept, if you just tuned in, is yesterday's Underdogs are tomorrow's champions. And it's all about how to compete when you're not number one. And it's the strength of the community that you'd be joining. There are 36 members in a variety of different industries. And, I'll add this disclaimer. It's not for everybody. It's really only for hungry people. Whether you're a leader or entrepreneur, you're hungry and you want to hit that next level. Maybe you've hit kind of a ceiling of success and you're frustrated because you plateaued. That's really who it's for. Some outside of the box ideas and feedback from your peers. It's part mastermind group, part subscription service. And, kind of with that in mind, it's a monthly subscription, or you can get a discount for an annual membership, just like you would do like with a Netflix or Spotify. And that's really kind of how it functions. But you'll receive content sort of drip to you within the site. It's password protected site. You receive it every month, or every week rather. Email alert just letting you know new content's available in the form of an article, a premium podcast, and a video. And it tends to be about leadership performance, different strategies like the concept of Dunbar's number that we talked about in segment number 2. You also get access to exclusive private Facebook community where your peers kind of serve as a sounding board for you. We do a monthly video conference call where it looks like the Brady Bunch, where you can see everybody in different little blocks. And I do member spotlights where I interview different members. Sometimes I bring on a celebrity guest from time to time. And you get 24-hour access to any kind of device. One of the perks is my members also get reserved seating in any public events I'm doing, workshops, speaking engagements, 25% off all my products on my website. But really what people do is they join, they think they join for the content, and they realize they end up staying for the community. And, I believe strongly in the community I've built, really kind of A-list players, much like yourself, who have joined. And if someone's not happy at any time, money back guarantee. You can cancel at any time. You're not locked into any sort of commitment. And that's how strongly I believe in what we're doing, that I know you're going to see the value in it. So you can go to yesterdaysunderdog.com to get more information. And people can reach out to me directly. I'm happy to have a conversation with you about it. I think it's a good community to join if you're looking for some creative solutions. And I think that there's strength in small numbers, not necessarily large numbers. So I would leave you with this: there's 7.6 billion people on planet Earth. You don't need to know all of them, or all of them don't need to know you in order for you to be successful. You need quality relationships with a strong group of really caring people who believe what you believe.
That's fantastic. I've been talking to John Brubaker. All the information about him is on my website, DerekVolkShow.com. So I've done a bunch of interviews, and I have a couple more to do with yesterday's Underdogs in preparation for my summer shows. And I think what I'm going to do is, on every yesterday's Underdog on my website, I'm going to put that they're a yesterday's Underdog. So if you go on my website, DerekVolkShow.com, at some point during the summer, and you see that somebody's a yesterday's Underdog, and you listen to their interview, you'll know that, hey, this is the kind of person that I'm going to connect with if I join the group. So with that, John, thank you very much for being on the show. Thanks for doing the little video. So for those of you listening, may not realize this, but John has been video recording this thing through Zoom on my iPad, and I don't know what he's looking at. And it's pretty cool. And we will be back next week with more of the Derek Volk Show here on News Talk WLOB, 1310 AM, 100.5 FM. Streaming on my website, DerekVolkShow.com, and on my podcast on iTunes and Stitcher. Have a great weekend. That's awesome. That's great.
I am.
Hello, everybody.
Let's.
Cool. So this is my wife there, and you know what that is right there? That's a ticket to see Elvis at the Cumberland County Civic Center.
He's playing there this year?
2 days earlier.
Oh, he's dead?
He was playing.
Elvis isn't dead.
Yeah, that's the rumor. Check it out. It's pretty cool. So I had a ticket to see Elvis, and he died on August 16, 1977. And this ticket is for August 18, 1977. And I did not get to go see Elvis. And this is all sticky in the background because it hasn't come down in probably 15 years.
Or Winnie did something to it.
Yeah, that's probably more likely.
I don't believe Elvis is dead. I think he's on a tropical island in Tahiti somewhere with a couple other people who just sort of happened to allegedly meet their untimely demise.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
Hitler and Michael.
Yeah, or like
You-
Marilyn Monroe or like JFK or somebody. And it just,
Yeah,
I was going to say OJ, but he's still alive and we know where he
yeah.
is. But,
I thought you said Hall and Oates.
yeah.
Don't know where they are either.
Well, I'm still recording this, by the way, so be on your best behavior.
Oh, all right.
And
my daughters love those conspiracy theory shows. They're pretty much convinced that Hitler did not die in a bunker, that he moved to Argentina and lived out the rest of his life.
they have good coffee there, so like if I were going to have to live in hiding somewhere, it might be Argentina because they have really good coffee.
Well, a lot of Nazis did go to Argentina. There were a lot of Nazis that escaped and went to Argentina because Argentina protected them. So who knows? Maybe Hitler went there because they never actually found him, I guess. So
anyway. I love the fact you had me on the show and we recorded it on this platform, and
super cool.
It's cool. I'm going to put this on YouTube as well, and
wow.
I'll share the link with you on that. But I just want to introduce everyone who's watching this to Derek and remind everyone where they can go, A, to access your radio show and podcast, and B, if they ever decide to get into the wicker chair furniture business, wherever they are, and need cardboard boxes or need cardboard boxes for anything.
All right. So number one, my radio show is DerekVolkShow.com, which you've probably heard about 20 times if you've been listening at all to this interview, if you've made it this far.
That's 21. That's 21 now.
21 what?
That you mentioned that content.
Oh. And then my website is volkboxes.com. So if you go to volkboxes.com, you can read all about our company and all the things that we're doing here.
Where do we follow your dog on social media, most importantly?
Yeah, most importantly. So Winnie is you can get him at Winnie. Oh, poor Winnie. Where is Winnie? Oh, there he is. You want to see Winnie? There
Absolutely.
Win. Where can you see him?
Yep.
There
he is.
Hey, buddy. What's up? I woke him up. He's annoyed.
I hope he pees on the floor.
He never, ever, ever pees here at Volk Packaging. He only pees at home.
That's false, because I remember shooting a video with you in the plant. He lifted his leg on a pallet of boxes, and while we were shooting the video, he pooped in the middle of the floor.
Yeah, he peed in the plant once. Yeah,
that's
but
awesome.
On the floor, no, actually.
Hi, Winnie.
But he never pees here in the office. He's very good about that.
Can you explain what breed Winnie is, and how he got the name, and why he's such a social media icon?
Yeah, so Winnie is a Maltipoo. He's a Maltese and Poodle, and he is probably the worst dog you'll ever meet, and he's very annoying and urinates on things on a regular basis and barks too much.
But typically only things that belong to you, right?
No, he's not a discriminative urinator. He'll urinate on furniture and other things. Anything left on the floor, if he wakes up from Serena's bed and decides he has to go, he's not going to come get anybody. He'll just go find a nice spot in the living room.
I think you like to play the victim, because all I ever hear about is Winnie peed on a box of my new books, Winnie peed on my backpack, Winnie peed on my briefcase, Winnie peed on my shoes. I think you just want to be a victim. And Winnie doesn't really pee there. I think you just blame him.
Maybe. I don't know.
Right, Winnie?
But so you can follow Winnie at Oh Poor Winnie on Twitter. Oh Poor Winnie. OH Poor Winnie, because people, when we say how much we hate him, people are always like, oh, poor Winnie. So he was just Poor Winnie, and then there was some kind of weird behavior on his Twitter page, so Twitter shut his page down, and I couldn't get it back open. And
Winnie told me it was Russian hackers.
Yeah, I think it was Putin. And then you can also get him on Instagram at Poor Winnie. And then if you're Facebook friends with me, I post them all, and on an album called Life with Winnie. But that's about it. My battery's about to die. I'm at like 4%. So this interview is about to end. Bye bye. And he's a guy. He's a dude. but
Yeah.
his name is, he got a girl's name because he's a multi-poo, and so Winnie the Pooh is how Dylan came up with it.
See what he did there? And I actually changed your name on the screen to Winnie's name, if you can see that.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that.
So he's...
I should screenshot this. Can I screenshot this?
I'm sure you can. I think you just did.
Yeah, I just did.
Winnie is what we would call stadium status. He's stadium status dog.
He is totally stadium. Absolutely. And we just found out yesterday, he's going to tweet it today actually, that so last week we reported that Winnie's birthday, and he turned 14, but that was actually incorrect. Rena had the date wrong. He is actually only 12. So he is going to tweet today about how excited Mariah is going to be to find out that she gets more time with Winnie because he's only 12. And there's a book coming out about the adventures of Winnie, but I'll tell you more about that later.
I hope that's either an adult coloring book for millennials or a children's book.
It's going to be a book of Winnie's appropriate tweets.
Excellent.
Tweets, yeah.
Winnie's going to be very jealous to find out my dog, Quincy, the black lab, is a model for the Orvis Christmas catalog this year.
Really? That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
He needs a better agent, though. He only made like $100 doing the photo shoot last month.
New agent.
Yeah.
Winnie would probably be more likely for like stray dogs or euthanasia or something.
Or like doggy diapers.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Piddle pads, I think they call them. So good.
We should get diapers for him. That'd be a good idea.
Sponsorship deal. I'm thinking sponsorship deal for him there.
Yeah.
So good talking to you. I know your battery's about to die.
Catch you later, everybody. See you later, yesterday's Underdogs. How do I turn this thing off now?